Day number 2 of MLB DFS in 2021. It brings us a 6-game slate looking pretty fun. I think it's a good slate where you have some options at pitcher. You've got some decent stacks. So let's dive on in and get you set for Friday's slate. Welcome on into the FanDuel Fantasy Live Q&A right here on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter channels. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, here to answer your questions around Friday's slate and get you set for tonight's 6-game offering. As always, if you have questions, make sure you get them in wherever you're watching this Q&A. We are on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter. We will take questions from anywhere you are watching and try to get you set for tonight's slate. We can talk pitchers, we can talk stacks, we can talk one-off hitters, we can talk value plays. If you have general process questions about MLB DFS, more than happy to discuss those as well. So get those in the YouTube comments and let's get popping for this Friday slate. In case you did not listen to the solo shot earlier this morning, the way I'm viewing this slate is I think that there's really kind of one pitcher who stands out above the crowd. That guy is Blake Snell, $9,500 for tonight's matchup with the Diamondbacks. And we talked about this with you, Darvish, yesterday. The Diamondbacks aren't a team I'd like to target all that much because they don't strike out very often against lefties, a 21% strikeout rate based on their current active roster last year. So not a high strikeout team, but 87 WRC plus, tied for lowest on the slate. And Blake Snell really good, 29% strikeout rate for him over his final 8 starts last year. That lines up really well, and you're getting an ace for $9,500. And I'm going to take that whenever I have the chance to do so. So I think that Blake Snell, easily the number 1 pitcher for tonight. The reason he is above Trevor Bauer is Trevor Bauer is out of Coors Field. And that's not exactly what you want for a pitcher. It's got that thin atmosphere. That's enough to make Bauer not be my first pitcher, and he's also not my second pitcher. My second pitcher for tonight is Pablo Lopez, facing the Rays. The Rays, a high strikeout team, 26% strikeout rate against righties last year. And Lopez had a good year overall last year, but got better as the year went along. He he started using his four-seam fastball more down the stretch, a 28% strikeout rate in his final 5 starts. When you're putting that up against a high strikeout team like the Rays, good things can happen. Lopez, $7,800. He is a top value play for tonight. After I get past Snell and Lopez, though, then we do get to Bauer. Because, yes, Coors Field is very difficult. But I think that it's reassuring that the Rockies probably aren't going to put the ball in play all that often because Bauer's going to get a lot of strikeouts, a 32% strikeout rate for him last year at his most relevant sample. And the Rockies had a 27% strikeout rate last year against righties. That is the highest mark on the slate, 87 WRC plus, tied with the Diamondbacks for the lowest there. What that means is they're not going to be able to exploit that thin air as often as they would be able to if they were a better offense. They're really not. So I think that's enough to still keep Bauer in play for tournaments. If you're playing a cash game, I think you can just disregard him for sure and just go with Blake Snell. It's just Blake Snell in tournaments, but or in cash games. But in tournaments, you have leeway. I would assume that if we're talking about popularity, Snell should be the most popular pitcher by a fairly significant margin. So if you want to deviate elsewhere, I'd probably go Lopez still before Bauer, but increased viability with Bauer because I would assume people won't be going there as a result of the Coors Field matchup for tonight. As far as stacking goes, because we have Snell at $9,500, you have to have a good amount of flexibility to go with the Dodgers out at Coors Field. The lineup not out for them as of last check. The Rockies are out, but not the Dodgers. So we don't really know who will play. We have a good idea who will play because we saw what yesterday's lineup looked like. Also, seems pretty likely that we do see Will Smith get in there. He did not play yesterday because it seems like we're going to see a situation again where we have Austin Barnes paired with Clayton Kershaw, but Smith should play today. So I think that's a good thing. As far as the other Dodgers here, obviously Bellinger, Betts, Seager, I don't have to talk about them, but the fun thing about the rest of this Dodgers lineup is that they have a lot of overlapping positions. So we got Gavin Lux here at $3,000. We've got AJ Pollock at $33,000, and we have Chris Taylor. The fun thing about this is, let's say the Dodgers lineup, this is what happened yesterday. Let's say the Dodgers lineup is not out by the time we get to lock at 7:10 tonight. You can put in Lux or Pollock, and let's say one of them doesn't start, but Chris Taylor does. Chris Taylor's salary is lower. I think it's 31. So it's not lower than Lux, but if you leave $100 of wiggle room in there, you can put him in at second base, and you can just swap him in for Pollock. So if one of them winds up not playing, you got flexibility. I think that's something that makes it easier to build lineups with the Dodgers before their lineup is officially out. So the Dodgers number one stack for today. Mateo is actually over on YouTube. Mateo, a returner from last year. Welcome back, Mateo. Which lower salary bats than the Dodgers do you like versus Sensatella? So actually, good timing, Mateo. Well done. But I think that Lux, Pollock, Smith, I would consider to be undersalaried as well. I think he's undersalaried relative to where he should be, just because I think he's really good. Really good numbers for him against righties last year. Actually got the Dodgers numbers pulled up here. This is the past calendar year against righties. Will Smith, a 42% hard hit rate, 49% fly ball rate, low strikeout rate, great results. I think Will Smith is probably my favorite Dodger for tonight. Justin Turner's 35. He's kind of right there, but assuming Will Smith does play today, which he should, I think that he's going to be probably one of the guys I want to use the most off. You don't have to use a catcher on FanDuel, but I think I will just because I like the way he hits so much. So to me, I think between Lux, Pollock, and Taylor, you have a lot of flexibility here to get exposure to the Dodgers and not force yourself to really spend down elsewhere. And with that said, I don't think the best value comes from the Dodgers for today. I think that if you're looking to save salary, I think the Padres actually give you a lot of routes for doing so. Let's pull up the Padres projected lineup here because their lineup is not out as of yet. They've got some good value plays. Jake Cronenworth, as I go to utility here. Jake Cronenworth, $2,600, expected to bat sixth or second. I know I'm going to put that down there. Whatever. Regardless, that's fine. $2,600 for him. We have Ty France. Just kidding. Okay. Oh, sorry. Ty France is on we're talking about him for the Mariners, for a lower salary guy, but you got Jake Cronenworth there. I think that makes things pretty easy. $2,600. He is a guy who had decent, but not great batted ball numbers last year. A 10.5% barrel percentage is good. It's above average. Definitely take that. Can swipe some bags, puts the ball in play a lot. So I think that Cronenworth at $2,600 makes a lot of sense. The reason I had Ty France in my mind is because I think the Mariners are another good spot to potentially turn to for some value plays. So you go here. It's not just France, also Taylor Trammell. Pretty interesting option. France likely to bat second. I think that between France, Trammell, Andrew Vaughn on the White Sox, who is the minimum salary on FanDuel, and then Cronenworth, you've got a lot of salary flexibility to make it easy on yourself to get to Blake Snell for this slate. So to me, I think he's kind of a no-brainer. Michael, I know you hate one-offs, but Slater from the Giants is a great salary saver. I don't hate them. I just don't focus on them very much. The reason I don't focus on them very much is because if I have a one-off, they're not going to be a core play for me. So, Michael, if I'm talking about my core plays for this slate, they aren't going to be one-offs. So let's pull up Slater here because the Giants are going up against Kikuchi. Okay, so you say Kikuchi, one of the guys who I always get sucked into with the good spring training reports, and they're there again this year. The velocity's good, adding pitches and stuff like that. Slater hit leadoff last night. I would assume that he would be doing so once again here. The concern that I usually have with the Giants guys is that last year we saw a lot of the time was when the lefty left, we would see the platoon guys who were in there get taken out of the game. So let's pull up here and see what went down with them last night. He did get 4 plate appearances. I would assume that means he probably got yanked. I was not up late enough to see the end of it, but my assumption would be that he wound up getting taken out of that game at some point. And yeah, so Dickerson came in. I think the way you can play this, Michael, is if Alex Dickerson is in the lineup, then I feel more okay using Austin Slater as a value play. If Dickerson is available to come off the bench, my concern would be that once Kikuchi leaves, we might see Slater go away, and they just put Dickerson in there as they did last night. So that's my concern. Yeah, the Kapler effect. You're right. It's frustrating for fantasy, but the problem is, I think it's smart given that they don't have a lot of, elite hitters. So it's probably the way they should do things. It's very frustrating for fantasy, and it does make it a lot tougher to use guys. But I think that it's the smart thing to do. So that would be my concern, Michael, with Slater. Obviously, the salary is low. He's really good against lefties. So I definitely don't think it's a terrible idea to use Slater at $2,500. I just think that for me personally, given that I think I'll wind up stacking the Mariners, I think that Trammell winds up being a good play in my eyes as a result of that. A lot of good speed for him. And I think a pretty solid matchup as well. That's why I want to go with Trammell, but I understand where you're coming from with Slater. I would just, with all Giants guys, I'd be wary of the pinch hitting because it's really maddening. And it's something we have to account for because, 4 plate appearances is not quite going to get the job done. So just be wary of that for sure. And it's something that I have in the back of my head always when using Giants players, making sure they will be in there for the full game. Aaron on Facebook says, hello, Aaron. Welcome back. Remember you from last year. Good to see you back in town once again. Talked about the Dodgers earlier, the Padres, the team I like, and the Mariners. The other team that I'm considering from a stacking perspective, it's the White Sox. They're facing Andrew Heaney. And I think Andrew Heaney is really good. I think he's a legit pitcher. The problem is he allows a lot of hard contact, and the White Sox provide a lot of hard contact. So we go here. Andrew Heaney, a 7.4% barrel rate allowed last year. This was, I think, over his full 12 starts. Yes, it was. But the White Sox, a 126 WRC plus against lefties based on their current active roster, and that should be without Eloy Jimenez. So even when you take him out of the equation, they're still a team that can pound lefties. Other thing that's fun with them is that Andrew Vaughn probably going to bat 6th. He is the minimum salary on FanDuel. So if you're looking for value plays and you're like me where you're a little bit wary of the Giants guys because you're concerned they may get pulled for a pinch hitter later on, I think Vaughn is someone who makes a lot of sense. You plug in Vaughn at catcher/first base. You have Snell there. You got 33.57. So if I'm looking for one-offs, I want guys who can truly move the needle, either from a power perspective and have the ability to be like these slate-busting type guys, or someone who moves the needle and allows me to get a lot of upside elsewhere. With Vaughn's salary being as low as it is, he actually does kind of move the needle. So I actually do think that Vaughn is someone I am okay targeting pretty heavily as a one-off just because it allows me to feel a lot better about getting the Dodgers, getting to the Padres too. Let's talk about the Padres here because I didn't discuss them before. I said that I like Andrew Heaney as a pitcher. I also like Merrill Kelly, the guy who is facing the Padres for today. The problem is these two numbers right here, the strikeout rate and the walk rate. One fun thing that you can do if you're trying to project out the number of hard hit balls in a game is just sum up these two numbers, the strikeout rate and the walk rate. You're omitting hit by pitches and stuff like that, but in general, if you subtract those two numbers from 100, you're going to get the percentage of plate appearances against that pitcher that result in a ball of play. If you do that for like Antonio Senzatella, you understand why we want the Dodgers because it's like 80% for him. If you do it for Merrill Kelly, you wind up at 73% off the top of my head. 73% of plate appearances wind up in a ball in play. That's a really high number, and it's a beneficial one for DFS. We also see that it's a small sample from last year, just a 5-start sample for Kelly, but 11% barrel percentage against him. That's a high number. The Padres make a lot of hard contact. They don't strike out very often. So although I think that Kelly, like Heaney, is a good pitcher, I don't think he's set up well for this specific matchup against this Padres team. Doesn't get enough strikeouts, doesn't walk guys, which in his case might actually be a slight detriment. Lets up a lot of hard contact. That's a rough combination for facing a Padres team that strikes the ball as well as they do. So although I think that Merrill Kelly is a good pitcher, he does wind up getting dinged as a result of the team he's facing. So Dodgers are number 1 stack for me for tonight. I do think the Padres are going to wind up being the number 2 stack here. It is basically just Cronenworth as far as the true value plays. I don't really want to go back to Jerks and Profar like I did yesterday. It was fine, obviously, but I think I have more options and I don't have as much of a need to spend down today as I did yesterday. So it was out of necessity more so than truly wanting to use him. But I think that I think Cronenworth specifically, a really fine option, 41% hard hit rate, not a big fly ball rate, but the overall barrel percentage for Cronenworth still pretty high last year, over 10%. So I think he lines up really well to be the best value play available on this slate. Other guys looking here at this Padres line, I think Campusano might be catching today for the Padres, so I wouldn't count on Caratini if you were previously. It sounds like Campusano might be the personal catcher for Blake Snell this year, so I would bank on that if you're trying to fill lineups beforehand. But as far as the other guys, Eric Hosmer I think is really interesting. I want to go through why I find him interesting. He had the home run yesterday, but we can talk about being skeptical of changes Eric Hosmer has made. But batted ball numbers stabilize more quickly than results-based numbers. And if you go back to Hosmer last year, you see the launch angle increased a lot. His fly ball rate increased like 6 percentage points. I'm still scrolling, looking for the batted ball number. I may have scrolled past it. I did, I think. Yeah, okay. So the fly ball rate from 2019 to 2020 went up 11 percentage points. That's a number that stabilizes pretty quickly. So personally, I'm entering 2021 under the assumption that Eric Hosmer is going to be a guy who's going to put the ball in the air 34% of the time. That's a good number, and you saw his barrel rate go up to 10%. So, yeah, it could be buying high on Hosmer off of a good year, but I think there are reasons to buy high because there was that tangible shift in how he's hitting the ball, putting the ball in the air more. That's a good thing for him. So if we go with Hosmer, we'll go Cronenworth, we'll go Pham because the batted ball numbers for Pham, pretty good. Let's see here. A 48% hard hit rate against righties. Not enough fly balls, but some stolen bases. That'll definitely work. So I think I'm good with that. And then kind of see what you have left. Like if you want to use Corey Seager on the Dodgers, you might not be able to get to Tatis as your utility play. Maybe you go Machado. Maybe you go Myers if you need the salary savings. But pretty easy to stack the Padres for today, even when going with Blake Snell. You'll have to have a one-off in there because Snell is your pitcher and you're using the Padres as a stack, but I think that's fine. So again, the pitcher rankings for today, Snell 1, Lopez 2, and Bauer 3. And before we move on, actually, let's go through Pablo Lopez here and show you what gets me on him. I kind of want to go through more process-based things at the start of the year just because I think it's worthwhile to show how we get to certain things, how we get to certain decisions that we're making as far as these guys. Lopez, really good changeup. And you go back to last year, I prefer pitch info, pitch type for Fangraphs. You see a 30% usage rate on his changeup, up from 22% the year before. Go back up here, and you see that his strikeout rate went up 25%. That's good. And then you go here to his game log, and you can go to his pitch info, pitch type. You'll see here that his usage on his four-seam fastball increased as the year went along, and it came with fewer sinkers. I hate sinkers. So it's great to see a guy using his sinker less. If we go to the final 4 starts here, we'll see that his strikeout rate in that time went up to 28%. It's a good number. A lot of walks in there, which is a little bit concerning, but I think that that's how you get to upside. So if you're wondering why Lopez wound up being a guy who stood out to me, it's a result of seeing him shift more to that four-seam fastball last year, getting a little bit away from that sinker. I think that's all really beneficial stuff, especially in his final 3 starts. The swing and strike rates there, not too bad, a little bit lower than you would hope, but still, I think that's a good thing for Pablo Lopez and why I have him number 2. Bauer 3. If, like, let's say you want to use 3 pitchers for tonight and you're not into Trevor Bauer at Coors, cool, I get it, totally understandable. I will not push back on you at all. I think the number 4 option is Jesus Luzardo facing the Astros, and that's why I can't put him any higher, because the Astros, very good, and not an offense we want to target. It's not because they're like a great offense. I think we're kind of past the days where the Astros are like this must-avoid offense, but this number here, a 21% strikeout rate against righties or lefties, that's a really low number, and it's one of the lower numbers on this slate. What that does is it lowers the true ceiling that Luzardo has. So to me, although I love the talent, which I do, I think Luzardo, as you can see here, the numbers I have for him, which would be his final 6 starts with, again, fewer sinkers, always good. 3.43 skill interactive ERA, 27% strikeout rate, just a 4% walk rate, tremendous numbers across the board. If you gave me Luzardo against, I don't know, like let's say if you switched him with Snell, I would be very good with going with Luzardo there. I'd still prefer Snell because Snell's just a really good pitcher, but like the matchup here is the reason I'm not on Luzardo. Nothing to do with him personally. Luzardo, low salary, $7,200. So if we're looking down here, I do prefer to go with Lopez among the value plays, but if you're not into Lopez for some reason, which, fair, understandable. If you're not into Bauer at Coors or just don't want to use Bauer because you don't want to cheer for him, I think that I would go to Luzardo as the other option. Yusei Kikuchi, we talked about before. We're talking about Slater as a one-off. I think that Kikuchi is kind of interesting. I'm probably not going to use him in DFS tonight. I think that it's a situation where I'd rather take a wait-and-see approach with him. I want to hold off, see what he does in this first start, see if he can get some whiffs. Because if he gets whiffs against a Giants team that's very righty-heavy and doesn't strike out very much against lefties, that could move the needle for sure. So Kikuchi, a guy I want to watch tonight, want to see what the data looks like after tonight's start, but not necessarily someone I want to use for DFS. If I'm going to fourth pitcher, it would be Luzardo, but I think tonight's probably a night where I'm sticking with just the three in Snell, Lopez, and then going with Bauer as a third person. Still got about 4 more minutes left. So if anyone has any more questions, feel free to put those on the YouTube page, on Twitch, Facebook, or Twitter. We'll take questions from all those places. And again, back here every weekday, 4 p.m. Eastern, answering your questions to get you set for that night's slate of DFS. So still some more time if you have any more questions you would like to get in there. Let's talk here about the Mariners quickly. Facing Johnny Cueto. Cueto, last year, had a 4.63 skill interactive ERA. This is over his final 8 starts where he tried to squeeze out his curveball. 21% strikeout rates, 9% walk rates. The walk rate's higher than you want because you do want some more balls in play, but at least it's base runners, so I won't complain too much. Didn't get a lot of ground balls. So the Mariners, I have 109. If you look at their active roster, yeah, they had a 109 WRC plus against righties last year. That's not accurate because they have so many guys who are on their active roster who didn't get plate appearances. So as the sample expands, that number will come down. I know that. They're not a 109 WRC plus team against righties. I'm acknowledging that. But they have some guys who are at least kind of interesting. Talked about Trammell before. Being a guy who has some speed, I definitely can get behind that. We have Ty France hitting higher in the order. I think that's definitely enticing because he had some interesting batted ball numbers. I think it was either an 8% barrel rate or a 10% barrel rate. You can go to Fangraphs. You can customize the leaderboards that pop up when you pull them up. So you'll see the word custom when it refreshes. Yeah, you see custom here. So I've set these leaderboards to be the numbers I value most. You get strikeout rate there, isolated slugging. I want barrel rate on there. So last year, an 8.7% barrel rate for Ty France. That's not bad. Pretty good numbers in the minors as well from a power perspective. The Padres have if I recall correctly, a pretty hitter-friendly minor league system, so you have to take all those numbers with a grain of salt, but good numbers and a good fly ball rate, if I recall correctly. Batted balls, 46, 36, that's not bad, but not a lot of ground balls. So I think that France is a good batter, hitting high in the order, low salary. I think that makes a lot of sense. So the Mariners aren't a team that I want to stack all that often, but it also comes back to what we talked about yesterday with the Rangers and the Royals, where even bad teams can have good days. So from a one-off perspective, I think the Mariners work if you want to say salary, but I'm also okay with stacking them at times because they allow me to kind of go nuts with my second stack within that lineup. And I think that they do have some upside facing Cueto for today. Trying to look through here and see if there are any other things to note. Christian Javier is a pitcher I like. The issue I have with him is pitch count. Last year, Dusty's okay with letting guys go pretty long. They didn't do that with Javier right away. He was around 85. He's actually in the 70s and 80s to start off the year. So I'm expecting, if I'm projecting a pitch count for Javier, probably around 85 or so. That's not quite enough for me to get super excited. So I'm okay being lower on him for today. And if they decide to let him go, then I will change my tune on him. That's why I'm not necessarily there. Ryan Yarbrough, not enough strikeouts. The Marlins actually have some dudes who can hit lefties pretty hard. So not getting there either. Don't think there are any other real major notes as far as pitchers for tonight. Dallas Keuchel I just don't use because there are enough strikeouts. So I think that I like the White Sox offense, but I'm not going to get the Angels in that game. Final note here, you see the temperatures for each game. It's a lower range than it was for yesterday's game. So that the Coors Field is the warmest one. That depends on what they decide to do with the roof in Miami and Seattle. If you get a note to see that Seattle's roof is closer tonight, that's a good thing for bats because current temperature outside is 53 degrees. But if they decide to close the roof, that goes up to 70, and that skews things pretty heavily in their favor. So if you are deciding, like me, to stack the Mariners, root for the roof to be closed in Seattle for tonight because that would be a great thing for hitters. I don't care too much about the pitchers. It wouldn't really bother me there, but I would check that out for sure. Michael says, hey, great call on John Means, having a great day. Did he get over 4.5 strikeouts, Michael? If you can let me know that. When we were getting set up for the show, I had the game on MLB TV. Was sweating it. He was at 4 strikeouts through 5 innings. I think he was at 66 pitches, so I kind of assumed that he was going to get over 4.5, but we're still sweating it, so hopefully he got over 4.5. I was talking about that on the morning after with Daryl Epstein and Jared Smith this morning, so hopefully I didn't give them bad advice. So hopefully we got John Means over 4.5, and didn't pay off for DFS because he wound up getting rained out, but at least I can feel good about that. So hopefully John Means over 4.5, and we can feel good about that. That is all the time that we have for today and this opening week here on the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A. Next week, though, we go to our regular schedule. We have the solo shot, 9 a.m. Eastern every weekday. We have the MLB Q&A, 4 p.m. Eastern. We also have a Masters Q&A with Brandon Gadula. That is on Tuesday at 3:30 p.m., which will transition right into this one, which will be airing after that. So make sure you are subscribed to the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, or Twitter pages and get those questions in every weekday. And again, the solo shot, 9 a.m. Eastern, and also on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast. John Means at 5 strikeouts. We're in the money, baby. That's all we ask. A good day for sure, and a good way to start the week. If you have additional questions for me, I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer, for running the video side of things here today. Thank you, Cal, as always. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck with your DFS lineups for tonight and this weekend. We'll talk to you once again on Monday. This has been the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A.